everybody, I'm Josh from Strangel Films, and I'm here with the 5D Mark IV, which is the latest DSLR camera that we're offering here at Strangel Films. So the 5D Mark IV is an update to the 5D line, which is a pretty famous line from Canon. It's given us some great cameras over the years, and it's got some really nice upgrades from the 5D Mark III. There's a lot of photography-centric upgrades, which I'm not going to go into in depth here. But if you want to check it out, we're going to link to a great review on dpreview.com, and we'll go primarily into the video features today. First off, we've got a 30 megapixel full frame sensor with dual pixel autofocus. It's got a 3.2-inch touchscreen rear display, and they've increased the max sensitivity of the ISO. They've added a 4K DCI internal recording codec for up to 30 frames per second 4K recording. There's some improved weather sealing, and they've added Wi-Fi, GPS, and NFC communications. Also, is a nice upgrade, adds 2 stops of dynamic range over the 5D Mark III. The biggest update for videographers has got to be the ability to shoot 4K video internally. That was something that the 5D Mark III really lacked, and it's nice to see the 5D line get a 4K upgrade. The way the camera shoots 4K is by taking a 4096 by 2160 pixel crop out of the middle of the sensor. So that's going to give you a 1.6 crop factor, which makes the part of the sensor that's used a little bit smaller than APS-C. That's comparable to a 7D or a C300, but you'll need to keep in mind when you're shooting 4K that you're going to have a crop factor and you're going to want to use wider lenses than you would if you were using a full frame camera like the A7S or even the 5D Mark III. So when you're recording 4K video, the camera is limited to using the Motion JPEG codec. This codec saves each individual frame as a separate image, which makes it great at retaining image quality, but it's not very efficient when it comes to space. Shooting 4K at 30 frames per second will result in a roughly 500 megabit per second data rate, or you're going to get roughly 34 minutes per 128 gigabytes of CF card. One of the more exciting updates to this camera is the ability to use Canon's dual pixel autofocus technology when recording video. When you're using L-series lenses, you're going to be able to track faces and transition smoothly and accurately between depths. With the new touchscreen, you can tap to focus, and the camera features 3 different autofocus modes in video mode. You've got face and tracking, flexi zone multi, and flexi zone single. So the face and tracking is fairly self-explanatory, but it's very powerful. You can simply pick an area of the screen, tap it on the touchscreen, and the camera will attempt to track the subject in the area and keep it in focus for the duration of the shot. It will always give priority to faces, and if no area is selected, then it will simply attempt to automatically track any faces it finds. But if you select a specific face, it will attempt to keep that face in focus no matter what other faces it sees or where that face moves on the screen, which is really cool. So the other 2 options work similarly, but they will not attempt to track a subject or a face. You simply touch an area of the screen that you want to keep in focus, and the camera will keep those points in focus throughout the shot. A new feature that hasn't really gotten a lot of talk is HDR video. The term HDR gets thrown around a lot these days, but this is referring to expanding the dynamic range of the camera by recording 2 streams of video, one optimized for highlights and one optimized for lowlights. Then the camera is able to combine them into a single HDR stream. Red's had a system like this, and they've been a pioneer in this kind of HDR on its Red cameras. But this is the first camera that we are aware of that's not a Red that offers this something similar. So the Mark IV can only achieve this mode in 1080 30 frames per second. No other modes support HDR. It's really interesting to us, and we're going to look into this further, so expect a video from us going into more depth into this feature soon. In conclusion, I would say that no camera is perfect. The Mark IV is no exception. It's got some limitations, but in terms of the price point and form factor, it does pretty well for who it's competing with. The only thing I would say that's really disappointing is the lack of slow motion capabilities. There's comparable cameras in similar price range that'll do 120 frames per second at 1080, and the only way you're going to get up that high frame rate on this camera is to drop down to 720, which is kind of a non-starter considering most people are shooting at the minimum 1080, probably 4K on this camera. There's also, as is tradition with 5Ds, a real lack of real-time exposure monitoring solutions. So there's no waveform, there's no false color, and so you're going to need to rely on external monitors or on-camera monitors when you're trying to get accurate exposure using this camera in the field. The other thing I'll say is that because of the crop factor and the limited field of view when you're using 4K, and the fact that you're locked into a motion JPEG codec, which is not super common and is a little bit clunky, I'm guessing that whenever possible, people are going to be using 4K recorders like the Shogun or the Odyssey 7Q. Limitations aside, I'm very impressed with the camera, and all the clients that have used it so far have been very happy with it. The form factor and the autofocus make it great for any kind of run and gun shooting, make it great for gimbal use, and it's a great travel camera, and it's a great still camera. So I'm very excited about this camera. If you guys have any questions about this camera or any of our other cameras, please feel free to hit us up at strayangel.com. You can send us an email, rentals@strayangel.com. Tweet us, follow us on Instagram. We love to talk cameras, and we hope to hear from you.